So, hello everybody, my name is Joel Daly, but chances are you may know me better as Cape Joel. There's also a chance you might not know me at all. I am the most subscribed to comic book superhero-based YouTuber in Canada, and you're probably wondering if that's true, why have I never heard of you? That's because of algorithms, and we're going to be talking all about that when we talk about breaking into YouTube, which is of course the title of this panel. I want to thank you all for being here with me today. This is really awesome for me. This is actually a major bucket list thing in my own YouTube career. I've done panels before, but usually when I do, I'm either emceeing it for someone else and someone much more famous, or I'm riding the coattails of someone much more famous, and usually American too. So it's nice to know that I can be here locally and, give back to my community, and also, work in my own home country, so I don't always got to worry about visas and everything traveling to the States. So, again, I wasn't really sure how I was going to put this panel together, and I thought really the best way I could do it is to kind of tell my own story in a TED Talky sort of way, and then really just kind of from my story glean teachable moments that would be good for all of you. So, it's a real comic book origin story. That'll be the first half of it, and then the second half I will of course open the floor to any and all questions you might have. So that's going to be real good. I guess you could say that I began my YouTube career in earnest around 2011. I think that's when the first Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie came out. And shocker, I did not like that movie all that much. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take to the internet because I have, an inflated ego. People need to know what I think. And so I recorded a little screed video talking about how much I didn't like it. And first teachable lesson, everybody, when I filmed these videos, which thankfully have been lost to time in the internet, as sometimes happen, I recorded this video in part half in my car and half in my bathroom, because that was the only place that actually had good non-echoey audio. Because even then I understood the importance that you can have bad videoing, you can have, bad, general shaky cam, dark lighting and everything. People will forgive that kind of poor editing and poor filmmaking. No one online will forever forgive bad audio, is the thing. Good, clean audio is key. I know many YouTubers who started with dark, grainy, really almost unwatchable videos, but they built a fan base because you could at least hear what they were saying nice, loud, and clear. And so that's the first big lesson there. It doesn't matter what kind of video you're making, so long as people can hear it. And video stuff, you'll figure that out as you go along. I'm no expert at it. I only just recently learned, the important stuff of, 3-point lighting and all that stuff to make it look good and professional. But yeah, audio, gotta invest in some good audio if nothing else. And I know there's YouTubers out there I work with who have much better audio than me. I thought it was great when I got my first Yeti microphone, but they've moved up. They got those little lapel pin mics now, those little Lavelle mics, and I'm always so jealous of those because they look so high tech, and I don't have one yet, but I'm gonna though. I'm investing in it, don't worry. So yes, that first Green Lantern video that I made was actually seen by a group who also did videos and podcasts and general YouTubing. They had way more subscribers than me. I think at the time they had somewhere like 500, almost 1,000 subscribers. And, they had asked me to come and guest on one of their projects, and that went to another guest spot, to eventually I'm co-hosting. What was the name of this group I was working with? Out of respect for the people who still work there, I do not. I left under not great circumstances. I often call them in my videos name redacted, to protect the people who still work there. But it wasn't one reason that I ended up quitting this group. It definitely wasn't thanks or money or anything like that, because that would just be silly. You could probably figure out what group this was. They're still fairly big, and their initials are that of a major Canadian cable company, but I'll just leave it at that. That also leads me to my second gleamed lesson. Networking and cooperation with other YouTubers is very important, and a great way to grow your personal brand, grow your channel, and really help expose your content to people who may never have seen it before. It did wonders for me, and also too, as a little subheading to that, joining a bigger collective to help, share the workload and everything sure helps. Everything is easier with friends, everything is easier with people helping you out, and that did wonders for me early in my career, helped, open a ton of doors, and I was really happy about that. Interestingly enough, when I started, I only wrote and I only recorded my stuff. Other people edited it for me in the very beginning, and as I eventually discovered, you really got to learn to be an editor too, because that's a much better way to own and control your content. Again, I was in a working situation where, I wrote reviews. That's what I do mostly, for those who don't know me. I'm a comic critic. I review the weekly books. I have a podcast. I have several other, history and lore shows that I do. But at that time, I was only writing reviews. And, this was a great opportunity for me, because I learned to, I learned what my voice was and my strength as a writer, and it was definitely a really good learning experience for me to hammer out all those words and really just kind of write every day. I don't know who it was who said it, but to become an expert at anything, you got to put so many hours into it. That was definitely my nose to the grindstone, putting hours into it thing. Eventually I did learn to edit, and that was probably the best thing for me, because it allowed me to have more control over my content, and that was good. I continued to network with other channels, and eventually it hit a point working for this group that I was working with that it's like, you know what? I don't really know where my money's coming from, and I don't really know how I'm getting paid, because here's the thing. YouTube, of course, for those who know and for those who don't, you get paid for ads. Once your channel reaches a certain point, you can turn on ads. That's how people make their money. The person who was my boss at the time inked the deal with the MCN. That's the network, the YouTube networks. They used to be way more powerful and way more influential. Truth be told, they're kind of waning. There used to be like thousands of YouTube companies that you could join with. And a YouTube company is, in the nicest way I can put it, it's a protection racket. You join with them in hopes you're never going to need them. If you ever get something like a copyright strike, or if anyone tries to mess with your video, you can go talk to them, and the hope is that, if you're making enough money for them, they'll want to step in and actually talk to someone at YouTube. That's another big thing there for you. When you do become a YouTuber, and when you do try and break into YouTube, don't expect to talk to anyone from YouTube. I've been doing this professionally for 5 years now. I have never once talked to anyone from YouTube, and I doubt I ever will, because they are a strange labyrinthian business where they want to put as much distance between the creator and themselves. Oh, they still want to take a cut of everything you do, and they will. But don't expect to talk to anyone right there. Just let me warn you about that one right away. But yeah, I made a big mistake early on in my career working for other people, and that is I didn't know where my money was coming from. So I didn't know what the cut was, and I just took my boss's word for it. And that eventually led to a point of being like, well, I've done everything I can here. I want to control my own content. I want to be my own man. And that's when I launched the Cape Joel channel, which is the channel I have now and the channel that I've been going strong with for a few years now. I think at last count, I have somewhere close to 30,000 subscribers, which you could argue is a drop in the bucket in the greater scheme of YouTube, but in my genre and in the small Canadian bubble, I'm doing all right, and I can't complain about that. It gets me to places like this to talk to people like you and share what I've learned. Again, you may have seen my work too. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Benny the Comic Historian or Rob from Comics Explained. They were two really nice guys. Sal from Comic Pop, just an amazing dude, one of the nicest people I've met in this YouTube business, which is something you don't get to say very often in a business as cutthroat as this, when everyone is jockeying for views and subscriptions. But these were really solid dudes who had been at this as long as I was, maybe even longer than I was, and they kind of took me under their wing and smartened me up about a lot of this MCN stuff and tagging videos right and really trying to work the algorithm. That's the thing you're going to hear a lot when you talk about YouTube, the algorithm, which it's kind of like the Force from Star Wars. It's always changing, it surrounds us, it penetrates us. What is this great algorithm? People claim to understand it who don't. It's this crazy thing, and it's always changing. I'm sure, for those of you who watch YouTube videos at home, you've seen a video show up in your feed and you're like, why is that here? I don't watch anything even remotely close to that. Why is this here? That's the mysterious algorithm working for you. Someone punched in the right tag, uploaded at the right time from the right place in the world, and because of that, It ended up going viral. It went viral all over the place, and everyone is chasing that, and everyone's chasing it even more so now because every year YouTube changes the rules. Basically, they change the rules nonstop, and half your job as a YouTuber is trying to stay on top of these rules that they keep changing. Like it used to be, if you lasted this long, had this many views, you could turn on ads on your video. Anyone could turn ads on once upon a time. That's not the case anymore. You need 1,000 subscribers and you need this many views within like a certain time frame to turn on, to turn on ads. And that's making it really hard for new creators, because I will admit, when I started, I did not have very high numbers. I had worked for other people. I had gotten my face out there a little bit. I had tried to make myself a brand, but my numbers were not good in the beginning. But I stuck with it. I said, hey, this is my career. This is what I want to do. I'm at a good place in my life. In between high school and college and everything. And here's the thing too, I had been doing this in high school. I had started this gig in high school, so I had like poured all my free time into, was actually able to keep up with it in between school. And the way I was thinking about it was, hey, I'm putting time into this gig because I want this to be my job. And I'm here today, so it did kind of become my job. But it's the time you got to put into it, and you got to stay on top of this magical algorithm that's always changing. Trends is a good thing to look for, everyone. Google Trends. This is one of those secrets they don't want you to know things. Every YouTuber you know and love uses Google Trends to try and stay on top of searchability. So you're always at the top of Google, and you're always at the top of the YouTube page itself for when you search something. That's what I do. I am constantly trying to stay on top of this. That's another thing. Like an average day for me, I will read a book for review. Wednesday, new comic book day. Some people know this. Yeah, you guys know that. I'll read it. I'll do up my review, record it, render, and then I gotta find the tags. And you gotta find the perfect tags. Some tags are evergreen and will always stay for whatever it is you're doing. Some tags change every day, so you really kind of got to stay on top of this. It's a little like Moneyball. It's the meta that you're trying to chase. It's the algorithm you got to find. But that's the gig I've been doing. It's been really lucky too, getting to go to conventions like this, because it allows me to interact and also network in person. In fact, I would say Geektopia, as it stands right now, has been one of the best shows for me for networking. Everyone around me in the guest section, super cool. John Gallagher, Vern Andrew, everyone's so nice, came up to me, said hi. I think in some ways I was a little bit of a little bit of a unicorn, where it's like, oh, that's one of those YouTube guys there, because all these other dudes are con veterans who have been doing this forever, selling their artwork, selling their books and everything. And super nice guys with a lot of questions I never even considered, where it's like, oh, how do you feel about merch and everything? How do you feel about this? And truth be told, didn't put a lot of thought into a lot of this. They put into it for me, and I really appreciate those guys, sharing the wealth of their experience with me there. That was really nice. And now the part where I take a breath. Another lesson that I really want to give to everyone in the YouTube thing, especially if you go the route I did working with a company, and that is know your worth and know when it's time to cash out and leave. Because I'm sure many people would tell me that I stayed with the wrong group for way too long, and that I should always have tried to do my own thing, and if I did, what could I have been now? So always know where your money is coming from, always know your worth on this thing, and time really is money. That is true. So if you're wasting a lot of time on something that's not going anywhere, you gotta drop it. So again, know what your bread and butter is for your channel. So for me, again, I do comic books, I do superheroes. Weekly reviews do great for me, because even people who aren't reading, want to know what's going on with Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, etc. And they'll check out a video that they might not check out. I have tried to parlay that into other things, like, oh, maybe I'll review the new superhero movie. No one was biting, no one was interested. What about the superhero TV shows? Again, no one biting, no one interested. They don't come to me for that. They go to other people for that, and I could try to make myself into these other people, or I could just try and be the me that I am. Because that's another big lesson, and this is another thing I want you to take away from this one. Make the kind of content that you yourself would want to watch, but also know full well that if there is someone who is doing that better and longer, it's going to be very hard for you to be a better version of that person. Like, for example, who's someone who's huge on YouTube? Let's use, I don't know, PewDiePie, for example. Spawned about 1 billion different Let's Players, right? And how many have as many subs and as much clout as he does. Not very many. People keep trying because Let's Playing is like that. Same with movie reviews. Again, lots of people do it, but unless you have an angle and a gimmick to it, you're never going to be better than that other person because the game is literally rigged against you in the YouTube thing. The big channels stay big, and the little guys usually stay little, more now than ever. I think a great success story, though, and one that I was really happy about, but it's a success story with a little bit of a caveat to it. Who's ever seen those girlfriend reviews videos on YouTube? Okay, yeah, Joe. Okay, a couple people have. So their stuff is great. It's well edited, really funny, cool perspective, fills a niche that wasn't really being filled before in the game sphere of YouTube. And I remember being super jealous of these two, where I'm like, they're so good. Why are they so good? They came out of nowhere and beat the system and bucked the trend in the algorithm, and they became huge, and Reddit loves them, and what's the big deal? As I found out later, they live in LA, and one of them is literally a professional editor. So that's why their stuff is so good, because they were literally pouring their own stuff into it from other fields. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to feel that bad then, because they had a bit of a leg up in that one. But yeah, a viral video is great in this thing. For a lot of people I know, they only really needed one viral video to help take them from, just like workaday YouTuber to like, oh, this is, I can do this professionally now. I never really had a viral, well, okay, I had a few within the comic realm, which themselves are smaller than regular viral videos, like maybe like 10,000 or something. I considered viral for me at the time. But that gets you more eyes on you, that gets you in more recommended. Another thing they won't tell you about YouTube right now, unless you're actually in the business, I will ask you, the crowd here, because we have a good amount of people, show of hands, who thinks that views are more important than subs? Not, okay, so a couple people there. It used to be the other way around. It used to be the person with the most subscribers was doing better at YouTube. Everyone was chasing subscribers is the thing. Now it's kind of changed. Now views are more important than subscribers. So you'll have a channel with relatively low with relatively low subscribers, but gets a lot of views because they keep going viral for whatever reason. And also too, because YouTube's ads are also all based on retention too. So how good you're doing on YouTube a lot of the time is based on how long people are watching your videos. I try and keep mine between 3 to 5 because, an average comic, 22 pages, sum up the story, give a little insight, make a few dick jokes here and there, good, clean family content is what that one is. So 3 to 5 is about where I try and keep that one. Some people can do better. Like if there's people who can get you to watch an hour-long video and that gets good views, they are golden at that point, because attention spans, especially on YouTube, statistically, and this is coming from someone who's looked at it, are really short and only getting shorter is the thing. People can really only watch stuff for 3 to 5 videos or 3 to 5 minutes, I should say. And a great thing, use your YouTube dashboard to really help you out, because it will actually tell you on the YouTube dashboard when people stop watching, which is a very useful tool to know when people have actively stopped watching you and have, clicked off and gone to do something else. I think that's, incredibly helpful to know where it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that thing again that made people click off. For me, obviously, the thing I think, and I have no problem telling people this, where I lose most people is my little ad bit at the end of the video where it's like, hey, if you like what you saw, da-da-da-da-da. I don't like doing it. I feel like a shill doing it, but you should really do it, at least if only so you can have your little recommended tabs come up there, because you get a lot of views from that and like repeat views. Sometimes people will just fall down like a hole of watching stuff. We all do it and be like, oh, I kind of like that. I'll watch the next one. And I'll watch the next one. And if that's on screen, that's also really good for you. So, you want to make your stuff unavoidable to people. That's really good stuff right there. Another thing I really learned for all the different outfits I've worked for, and like here's the thing, I've been solo Caped Joel for a couple of years now, but even when I wasn't, I've worked for I've worked for or have ghost written for basically all the big comic book channels you can name. Which I count myself really lucky that I've gotten to do that, because it's given me a nice insight into how other people run their businesses and how they work. And even though they're bigger than me, the fact that they gave me a chance and that I can kind of incorporate everything I've seen. One thing, and this is another big one, if you want to be a YouTuber professionally, deadlines of your content is really important. If you tell people that a video is uploading at 8, you gotta upload it at 8 because, you know, YouTube is the new television and people want to see their shows at the time you say that they're on, is the thing. And people will get very perturbed if you miss an upload. Perfect example, again, I traveled here from Ontario, so my new comic review of Miss Marvel Annual didn't go up because I had set the time wrong, because obviously I'm traveling and I didn't want to bring my computer and my rig with me. So I just realized that at lunch where I'm like, oh no, this didn't upload. So I had to run in and obviously manually upload it. That didn't feel great, but at least they got it up, and I was sure to apologize on Twitter and on my social media feeds. And that's another thing too. Twitter is your friend. Instagram is your friend when it comes to breaking into YouTube, because it's another place where your fans and followers can find you and you can become a regular part of their day. I really went all in on Instagram this last year, and obviously because I'm here, this is wonderful. This is a gold mine for Instagrammable content, a convention, because, you know, hey, cool cosplayer, cool piece of merch, everything like that. And that just becomes a snowball, and that just keeps going. And again, if you learn to work the Instagram meta too, you know, hashtag this, hashtag that, making sure everybody sees you. Of course, this week, everything I've done is hashtag Geektopia, because I'm here and because people are looking at it and because, you know, that's good stuff to do. I'll freely admit I don't remember to do it all the time, and I always kick myself when I'm like, oh, that was a good post, but that could have been better, is the thing. And that's something. Yeah, social media is your friend. I would say start with Twitter. Twitter used to be excellent for YouTubers. Twitter used to be great because when you published a video, Twitter would auto-post about it and be like, hey, check out this new video. For some reason, they stopped doing that in the last year. I don't know why they stopped, and that's become a major pain now, because that means every time it happens, I gotta go and manually do it myself. And sometimes you forget. Sometimes life happens, and you're like, oh, did that remember to happen? No, it didn't. I manage a Facebook page too. Facebook is probably the least followed thing I do, but I do it anyway because I figured the people who are on Facebook are on it a lot, and I want them to see my videos when they come up. Reddit is your friend too. I will freely admit, I don't know how to work Reddit. I'm a bad millennial. I don't know. Reddit thing, upvote, down, it's not for me. If I was making more money, I would hire someone to work Reddit for me. That's how bad at Reddit I am. So yeah, that's basically my life story in a nutshell, everyone. That's more or less how I came from where I was to here I am today. Some workable lessons, and I guess too for the second half of the panel, anyone who had any questions at all, I guess just kind of form a line where I can hear you. We sadly don't have a microphone, so if anyone just wants to come up, form a line, I'll answer any questions you might have, anything at all. Anything, any?
I guess I'll start with.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What would you say is like the most important quality for a YouTuber? Would it be like professional, like having professional level editing, or like being fresh, having like a fresh original idea, or would it be like being like charismatic, or like any kind of trait? What would you say is the most important?
Right, that's an excellent question, you know, and there's many schools of thought on this one. You know, charisma obviously will get you lots of places in life. I personally like to think if this was an RPG, I'd have a 20 in charisma. Again, you know, inflated sense of self-worth helps a lot too. The fact that, you know, people need to know what I have to say. Being able to overcome stage fright is a major thing too, because I've seen many people who I can talk to, have a great rapport with, are super fun and funny, and then the second you plunk down a camera in front of them or something to record, they completely clam up, and the idea that people are watching completely wrecks them. And you know, I felt like that a little in the beginning, and I like to think I'm more or less over it now. The fact that I can address a whole room full of people like you should show just how far I've come on this one. Writing is an interesting thing. Obviously, you know, you don't want to repeat yourself a lot, you know, good vocabulary helps. Writing comes in time is the thing. Like, I'll go back and I'll watch some videos I've done before and be like, man, that really sucked. Boy, I've gotten so much better since then. I think it's a constantly improving thing. Another thing about writing for what I do, and I'm sure I've mentioned this elsewhere, but it bears repeating for anyone who doesn't know me. In the beginning, I wrote everything down for every video I did quite meticulously, and I would spend a long time writing and rewriting and everything and being like, oh, I can make this sharper, I can put more stuff in there. And you'd think like, oh, does he keep doing that? No, actually, because it became a major time sink, which hurt my deadlines, which, hurt having new content every day. Eventually, there came a point when I was so confident in what I was saying, what I really think I had found my editing style, and really kind of knew what Caped Joel and the Caped Joel channel was, that now when I do a review, I mostly just shoot from the hip. And some people can tell I shoot from the hip, and some people can't. And God bless the ones that can't, who don't know that I do most of this, that I do most of it without a script. I work without a net. Now, obviously, this comes back and bites me sometime. Like, again, this week, I had to get 5 videos done because I knew I was going away for 3 days to the con and at least 2 more days for travel. So it's like, okay, I gotta read these. Okay, but I gotta keep that information in my head though, because I don't want to start mixing and matching when I start recording. And I gotta make sure everything's 3 to 5 minutes. And oh yeah, I gotta be funny too. Being funny helps. People like funny, in my humble estimation. A little bit of honey helps the medicine go down sometimes. And if you can make someone laugh, they'll definitely want to come back and see what you're doing. But it's any number of things. I think if you do one thing really well, if you're really charismatic, if you have really slick editing, if you are punctual even, I think it will work, and I think you will eventually find an audience. And the stuff you're not good at, you'll get better at. It's like a muscle. You gotta work it out every so often. And I know plenty of other YouTubers. I know I've gone to plenty of these conferences myself, just like people with you, and people always said, the important thing is to start now. And in the back of my mind, I'm always like, oh, what bumper sticker wisdom, start now. It's like, maybe know a little bit before you start now is the thing. Don't just jump on in with both feet. But I would say start promptly, because again, like I said, YouTube makes it harder every year to actually make money at it. I talked about the YouTube companies before, the ones that you sign with that are a little bit like protection rackets. Used to be a whole bunch of them. Now there's maybe 3 or 4 because YouTube has made it so difficult for people to actually be able to turn on ads and start making money in any reasonable way. The smaller YouTube companies are drying up and dying because they don't get to take a little percentage of anyone's videos, because used to be you'd have all sorts of YouTube companies after, even if you only had 100 subscribers. They're like, hey, come sign with us with a 60-40 split. Sure, you're not making much, but we're making 60 of whatever you're making, so it should work out for us. Now there's not nearly as many, and they've only become more corporate, the YouTube companies that you can sign with. I think Disney owns Maker, and I know there's another one. See, I can say that because I'm not with Maker. I'm with Frederator. Hey, Frederator. Started by a couple of the guys who started Cartoon Network back in the day. They wanted it to be a hub for animation. They wanted to, foster the next generation of animators online. Didn't happen, but now they got a pretty good YouTube company. And also too, again, about knowing your worth and everything, learn to be a negotiator, because you will eventually need to learn to negotiate in this gig, as I learned the hard way. I cannot tell you how many times people come to me being like, oh, I have a startup ad company. You have a lot of viewers. Can I pay you some money to do this? And my thing is like, I don't want to say no to money, but at the same time too, I'm like, look, is your thing laden with viruses? Is this app gonna be here next month? A lot of the time they aren't, is the thing. So, be your own advocate. Don't be afraid to ask for what you deserve. And again, too, read the fine print. This is true in every business, but it's also true in YouTube, especially when you're working with a YouTube company. I know some people who signed some terrible deals right out of the gate. One guy I know, big prominent YouTuber, again, I'll protect his identity in case he doesn't want this getting out. He was with a terrible company for like 5 years. They signed him to a 5-year contract out of the gate, and they were like historically one of the worst companies, and his reasoning made a lot of sense. He's like, oh, well, I didn't know another company was coming around, so I just signed with the first one. Maybe should have waited a little bit on that one. He eventually got out of it, which is good for him, but yeah, definitely make sure to look at what you're signing, know your worth, and know where your money is coming from. Any other questions? Anything at all from anybody? Anyone else? Sure. Yes.
They got a new thing where like a video, they obviously upload it before it's going to be released.
Yes.
You'll get a little preview. Is that a good thing in here? I think it's fairly new, isn't it?
It is. Oh, yes, the YouTube Premiere thing. I have thought about using it several times, never actually used it. I know my co-host on my podcast, Matt, He tried it, it never worked for him, but then again, he's from Australia, so I don't know if that's a thing. I do believe YouTube is doing that because YouTube is feeling the Twitch crunch, is what they're feeling. And Twitch, of course, people will know that's where you can stream video games, that's where people can live stream. Really, Twitch has become the only kind of viable YouTube competition, I would say, in the last little bit, because you had Blip and obviously Vimeo, you pay them to put up your videos, and Dailymotion, which, God bless Dailymotion for just hanging in there that long. It's the little video service that could, isn't it? But yeah, the Premiere thing, yeah, I think that's them trying to be like, hey, you can do live with us, even if it's not live. I do shorter content, and because of that, I don't think it would make a lot of sense to do a Premiere. But if I had longer content, you know, if I did something that was like an hour and maybe make a big deal about it, to be like, hey, watch this new thing I'm really proud of with me and talk to me. Also, too, doing Premiere allows you to get tips is the thing, because YouTube does have its own live thing, and you can give tips to people live. Again, much like Twitch, the only difference is you're not getting bits, you're actually getting real money. I don't do a lot of live content on my own channel. I'm on a lot of live content with other people, but I definitely feel like they would have a little bit more expertise on that one. Is it a good idea? Yes. Have I fully cracked the code on it? No, but I will get back to you when I do. No problem, no problem. Good question. Yes.
How about making enemies on YouTube? Because there's the whole thing with you and Scott Liddell.
Oh, good story. Good. Oh, I'm so happy I get to tell this in front of a group of people. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, so yes, YouTube beefs, and you know, much like rap beefs and everything. What do you do when you're in one, and how do you deal with that? I'm happy to say I'm an easygoing guy. I've gotten into no real Twitter dramas, no real beefs, nothing I really couldn't get, you know, on the other side of. The block button is your friend, the mute button is your friend. Again, time is money, and arguing with people ain't making you any. Scott Liddell, for those who don't know, is a comic writer. He works for DC currently. You know, he's done stuff like, well, he wrote a lot of X-Men back in the day. That's what people know him for. But he primarily works for DC now because he's good friends with their VP, Bob Harris. He did that really, really embarrassing Red Hood and the Outlaws thing where they really kind of dragged poor Starfire and Roy Harper Arsenal through the mud. And it was one of my earliest videos, actually, when I was working for Name Redacted originally, and I kind of laid into Scott Liddell in this video. And looking back on it, maybe I wasn't being the most professional. Maybe I wasn't so much reviewing the work as I was reviewing the man, who by all accounts isn't that nice in real life. And in fact, I've had it confirmed by people I've talked to who work there, but that's neither here nor there. And yeah, he really, really did not like me. And this is like the only time, thankfully, I can say that word that I did on my little silly YouTube show got back to a creator, and that they were genuinely upset with me. And I found out about it in the funniest way possible. I've never met Scott Liddell. I've never even been in the same room as him, but fans of mine have. And the story goes is that a friend or a fan of mine went to a comic book signing he was doing in California. This was a signing for money, by the way. He wasn't giving away. He was like giving money for signatures. And someone thought it would be a great laugh to be like, hey, Caped Joel doesn't like Scott Liddell. I should get him to sign one of these issues for him. And he went up there and said, oh yeah, make that out to Caped Joel. And Scott Liddell said no. And he was signing for like 20 a pop. He turned down $20 to sign a joke autograph for me. That's how much he hates me and hates my guts. Can you believe that? That is just an insane story. I wear it like a badge of honor now. But even that was a learning experience, and that is like, okay, I guess I burnt that bridge in this one. I guess if I ever did something with DC, which I've actually done several things. I've actually, that they have a fan channel, the DC fan channel, where they let YouTubers like me upload videos. That's a fun thing I got to do because I actually got to work with a comic company that helps pay my bills. Yeah, I've done several things with him. Never met Scott Liddell, but I get the feeling if I was ever in the same room with him, there would be words and beefs and probably daggers stared at me. But beyond that, you know, the way I always tell people when it comes to, you know, navigating YouTube and navigating Twitter and social media is treat it like a stage. It's your stage. It's not your home. It's your stage. You can come on and off whenever you want, you know, play to the crowd that likes you. If someone is heckling, you can ask them to leave if you want. But yeah, treat it like your stage. not your home. That's the way I would personally look at that one. But excellent question, and a chance to put a story down on film forever where it can live this way. Also too, from what I understand, Scott Lobdell checks whenever his name is mentioned a lot, so he's probably gonna see this, and if he does, hey Scott, sorry, it's been a long time, can we bury the hatchet, man? Anything else? Any other questions? Right? Yes, sir.
How often do you like change your opinion on a comic? You know, give maybe like a lukewarm review or whatever, negative review, and then later on, like, oh, it wasn't so bad, or the opposite.
Right. Right, you know, well, obviously that happens a lot in art and criticism. You know, changing your opinion is a regular, normal human thing and something we shouldn't be afraid of. I think there's nothing worse than sticking to, you know, a bad opinion, being, you know, finding out new, better information, being like, oh, well, you know, I can't be seen as a flip-flopper, so I gotta run with this. Working in comics like I do, and it's an interesting medium to review because unlike television and unlike like movies, they're serialized stories and they never stop and they keep coming out, and there's always big events. I can't remember the last time I got to actually go back and reread something with fresh eyes because I'm reviewing like 10, 12 books a week sometimes up to 20 if there's an event going on, and it's, you know, there's always new events. It's summertime, which much like event at the movies, totally events in comics. I just finished Thor: War of Realms. Venom Absolute Carnage is going to be starting up soon, so I'm going to be incredibly busy. To answer your question, I wish I had more time to go back and reevaluate stuff and be like, hey, maybe I was a little harsh on this one, maybe I was in the wrong headspace. I wish I could go back and reevaluate more stuff, and a lot of the time, I am just going off memory. Hey, free thing I'll tell you right now, sometimes if I have to talk about something with, you know, authority and be a bit of an expert, I'll go back and rewatch my old videos and be like, oh, what did I think about that actually? It's been so long, I don't remember. And it's nice too to have a catalog and to have stuff that you can fall back on. I will say this about being a YouTuber. Being a YouTuber actually made me want to take better care of myself physically because I'd have to be looking at my face so much. And as I found out with a lot of my friends and contemporaries, when you film yourself just about every day for YouTube, you're gonna see yourself either getting skinnier or fatter or older and grayer. So like, yeah, I definitely wanted to try and take better care of myself, and you can go back and watch some of my old videos and be like, ooh, I was in a bad place back then. Ooh, I had a bad case of the moon face back then. I thought that haircut was good. What was wrong with me? But yeah, so that's an interesting thing about YouTube and content creation, that you can sometimes go back and sometimes you're not always happy with what you see. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything that I would actively be like, in retrospect, I didn't like that I did that. Well, the Lobdell thing I was a little harsh on, but if I wasn't too harsh, I wouldn't have a story. By and large, I stand by just about everything I say on there. I have to say just about everything because I'm sure someone will correct me and be like, no, 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 you did this. That's another thing with YouTube and the internet. YouTube and the internet have long attention spans and long memories. And if you think something is gone and buried, it is not. And in fact, I know full well some of my fans are better catalogers of my life than I am. Because they'll tell me stuff where it's like, yeah, you said this on the May 6th episode, 2017. I'm like, did I? And then I go back and listen to them like, wow, I surely did. You know, that actually reminds me of another thing. Dealing with fans and dealing with people. When it comes to YouTube and cultivating a fan base, I like to think I'm very respectful of everyone around there. I like to think I tolerate everything short of intolerance is my thing. But yeah, every so often you will have to block, you will have to ban, because some people don't know it's all fun and games. Some people don't know it's all in jest. Some people take it very seriously. And yes, I've gotten death threats just for talking about silly comic books. I've gotten weird fetish requests too, also. I'm apparently a bear. I didn't know what that was until I looked into that. That's a real thing. That's a real thing that happened to me. It's a whole thing, and you'll get to learn all about it when you choose to make this your job. I'm happy to say I've never had a stalker. I've never had anyone be so overly creepy that like I feared for my life and had to like call the police or anything. I know plenty of people that was the case though, especially for women on YouTube. Boy, I mean, women get it rough everywhere, but they especially get it rough online. I have nothing but respect for the women who stick in on that one, because oh wow, oh the things you see and the things they collect on there are just, they'd make your skin crawl and just make you shake your head like, oh man. But yes, any other questions? Anything at all from anybody?
This might be a long shot, but do you have any advice for someone who wants to get into writing comics? Or
Right.
at least, like, as someone who reads a lot of comics, do you have any tips for, like, what would make, like, a better writing tips for comics?
Right, okay. Well, you know, as I'm sure, I gotta make this joke because someone will meet me off at the pass if I don't, where it's like, hey Joel, don't those who not write review? It's like, yes, and also no, and also shut up. But yeah, I mean, like I like what I like, and I've liked plenty of books that some people hated, and vice versa. But you know, I would say, you know, be honest to yourself. You know, don't try and copy anyone else's style. You know, try and give someone new and interesting ideas that they haven't seen, or just even something that you've never seen, and just be like, man, how come they've never done blank? Chances are, if you're asking that question, you're not alone in that, and you should probably write that. That's what I would say. That's my thing. I know on the show I do with Sal Crivelli from Comic Pop, we pitch stuff constantly. We pitch stuff all the time. And people tend to tell me I have good pitches. You know, a lot of the time it's just me saying like, man, wouldn't it be cool if blank? And then that blank usually turns into a 20-minute conversation. And everyone's like, well, Joel, that's so amazing. Here's the thing, I was just pitching it. I didn't have to write it. I had a beginning, middle, and end. I don't know the moving parts of how we get there, though. And then I also don't know whether, like, okay, now make it 12 issues with tie-ins. Okay. I try and figure that out. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, the con circuit where we are right now is a great place. If you're wanting to be a creator, you know, talk to the people in their booths there, talk to the artists. I know Jim Lee at San Diego every year does like actual evaluations of people's art portfolios, which I think is amazing to have someone like Jim Lee, a guy who basically, you know, re-envisioned and reinvigorated art back in the early 90s, drew every X-Men image that you know and that is famous, to have that guy actually look over your stuff. And the fact that he's also, you know, has a major place within it as a president, so, you know, he could get you hired if he really liked your stuff. You know, again, social media is your friend, Instagram is your friend. I can't tell you how many great artists and writers I see who just put their stuff up online, and I'm like, this is amazing. Why isn't this person hired? This person is great. But yeah, definitely build a resume and build a place where people can find you, and your stuff is definitely what I would say. Anything else from anyone at all? Any questions? Oh, we see a young man there. Don't be shy, it's all good. Did you have something?
I was just wondering, is there any advice that you have for people who are trying to get their channels a bit more popular?
Right. Okay, so again, little useful tips. You know, how do you make your channel look more appealing? How do you find it? If you go to my own channel right now, you'll see I've got some very nice art. I've got my little caped man that I had designed for me. It's down on my booth out there. Paid a good amount of money for that from an actual professional artist. Always pay your artists, everyone. Never say work for free, or never say I'll pay you an exposure. They hate that. Don't say that to them. They really hate it. Good art costs money. I paid about $300 for mine, and it was a good price because he did my little logo, and you know, he did the banner, which is the first thing people see. Also too, hey, here's a good one. Font. Good font is your friend. Most people think that for, you know, a YouTube video to be seen, you need like crazy font. You know, you need something that looks, you know, really striking and different. That's actually not true, and I figured this out very late in the game. The best font you want is simple font. You want like Arial, you want Times New Roman, and the reason you want that is that it's very easy to read on a cell phone and on a tablet, and more people are doing their, you know, computing on their phones and on their tablets, and big fancy font is harder to read on stuff like this. Also, as another thing I'm sure you've noticed, the color yellow. People love the color yellow when it comes to fonts to really catch people's attention. The Simpsons, quite famously, are yellow because Matt Groening had the idea that it would catch people's eye when they were channel surfing. He was right, and the same thing applies to YouTube. Also, too, people read left to right in North America, so if you want to be big in North America, be sure your stuff reads from left to right. Some people move it around sometimes, and I can speak from experience, when the writing is on the right, less people watch it. So that's a real thing. So placement is very important. Have it clear, have it well placed, have it be bright and eye-catching. Now, obviously, there's hacky ways to do this too that I would not recommend because they drive me nuts. How many videos have you seen where it's like, ooh, you know, top 10 things you missed, and it's an arrow and like a little red circle and everything in no particular place? Yeah, those do work. but I hate it. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying don't do it. Because it's a real thing, you know, people will comment just to be like, oh, that arrow didn't mean anything, that circle didn't mean anything. Which, so yeah, that's the thing I would say. Font, really work on a good thumbnail. YouTube has more tutorials for this now than ever, the right dimensions you want to get. I use Adobe Photoshop, and I've used Adobe Photoshop forever, and I've been bad at it for like half the time. I will freely admit, as with everything else, your thumbnail editing will only get better. I actually just changed my thumbnails this month, and I think they're the best I've ever gotten them. Which is funny because they're also the most simple they've ever been. Because I was overthinking it every other time, and I think they finally have gotten somewhere good with them right now. But yes, that was an excellent question, is what that was, because that's something people don't think about all that often. Anything else? Anything else to offer everyone? Who put it up first? Okay, you first, then you.
Do you have any tips for people who aren't too good at editing too? Since I've had some problems editing.
Right. Again, you know, if you want to be a good YouTube editor, YouTube is also your friend on this. There is many a times I have had to search a tutorial to figure out how to do something. Now, I am lucky because if you've seen my videos, they are incredibly simple. I have one template I use over and over again. Some would argue maybe to my detriment that it's like, geez, Joe, you've been playing the same song for 5 years, learn a new tune. But it's gotten to the point where I'm so married to my template and I'm so married to the music I use and like the cuts and everything that I use. I'm also a weirdo too, and I'm sure this will get me a lot of angry comments too. I use Sony Vegas, not Premiere. Everyone I know uses Premiere, but I learned on Sony Vegas, and now I'm so afraid to leave Sony Vegas. Even though everyone says Premiere is better, lets you do all the same stuff and it's easier. Yeah, I would say invest in a good editing software, and you know, really take the time to learn it, you know, mess around with it, get experimental with it. Also too, just watch videos you like with editing you like and be like, all right, how do I do that? Because that's basically all I was doing in the beginning, like, oh, this guy's got like a nice transition here, and oh, how does he get the camera to move along the page? That's really good. And eventually over time, I just kind of figured it out. But yeah, pick a program you like, learn that program inside and out, and stick with that program. And again, you know, I really don't do a lot of intensive editing. My editing is really simplistic, is the thing. And maybe that's something too. Don't be afraid to be simplistic, because it doesn't always need to be bombastic and over the top. In fact, I will say there's a good portion of videos, which, okay, they're more popular than mine, but I will say are a little over edited. You know, I think that's the kind of like, what is it, the Watch Mojo influence of it, of videos, where it's like, you know, there's very little substance here, but the editing is really flashy and it changes every 10 seconds, so people are much more engaged and want to watch it longer. That's a good one too. Yeah, change it up every couple seconds, because again, I try and have nothing on screen for longer than 10 seconds. Because again, if something is there for longer than 10 seconds, a lot of people get bored sometimes. So I try and change the actual images. Never, if you can help it, stay on a static image. Never stay on a static image, because people will be like, all right, I don't actually need to watch this now. I can click around, I can go to Netflix, I can do whatever else. You wanna try and keep attention, because keeping attention keeps up retention, and retention means you're better with the algorithm. So it's a whole big snowball effect. Yes, you had something to say.
What do you think about like the health of the comic industry itself? Like, do you think it's kind of like staying the same, is it growing, declining?
Right.
The whole comic shop seems to be trickling. Any thoughts on that?
Ooh, that's a good question too. I feel like I've spoken on this a lot, but it definitely bears repeating. And thank you for asking a comic book question too, because that's what I am. That's my day job. You know, it's funny. You know, we talk about this all the time. DC was really up a couple years ago when they had DC Rebirth, and it felt like they could do no wrong, and they were incorporating the Watchmen into their stories, and everything was happening, and Jeff Johns was the new president, and everything looked like it was going so good. And then slowly over the last couple years, that's eroded. They've got too many prima donna writers now who don't check with continuity and don't check with each other anymore. It feels like the Watchmen story they built up for over 2 years isn't going anywhere now, or if it was greatly changed and reworked from what it was supposed to be. There's good stuff there, but by and large, my pull list has just been whittled down to almost nothing at DC right now. Where meanwhile Marvel was in a bad way there for a little bit with constant reboots and, you know, rejiggerings and everything. They've only gotten better now. They've moved from strength to strength. Jason Aaron is doing great stuff with Avengers. Thor is doing great again. Nick Spencer Spider-Man is having a great mystery right now. Probably one of the best who is bad guy mysteries since like the original Hobgoblin storyline. So people are really interested, really invested. Obviously you got their new slate of young heroes, which I know a couple of years ago people were like, oh, these young heroes, I don't know about them. But Marvel future-proofed it because they were willing to put the time, effort, and money into them to try and make Nova and Miss Marvel and Miles Morales Spider-Man bigger stars. And now Miles has a huge movie now and everything. And now they waited out. They waited out the bad times and they got to the other end of it. And I think they're doing much stronger because of that. I know there's been some big seismic shifts in comics recently too. Vertigo, a company that we always thought was going to be with us, was just axed out of the blue, and like 8 months after they said, oh no, we've got a whole new thing of books. There's a weird new regime at DC right now that's making a lot of weird changes, and it's not even just the comic books. Mad Magazine got killed this week, everyone. Mad Magazine got killed, which is insane because that thing's been going on for like 70 years. That thing's been going on almost as long as Superman, and they just axed it out of the blue one day. And it's the saddest thing in the world to think something that would always be there isn't going to be there anymore. And that, I think a lot of comic people took that Mad Magazine news and really got frightened because they're like, oh no, Mad was an institution and they killed it overnight. Oh no, what if Superman or Spider-Man stop being popular? Are they going to kill them overnight too? And it's just, it's weird. Also, too, Robert Kirkman ended Walking Dead just recently. Again, almost out of the blue. Like, yep, next issue's the last one. Or potentially the last one. There's talk that it's a secret backdoor to reboot it and to get another #1 out there. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. But it's a strange and interesting time in the world of comics. You mentioned comic shops there. I'm maybe a bit of a doomsayer on this, and I know I catch a lot of hell from this, mainly by people who own comic shops, and that is, we'll see the death of the brick and mortar shop in our lifetime. Like, no doubt about it. It's just not sustainable anymore. Some people have hung on really good and gotten creative, where it's like, you know, half comic book shop, half coffee shop, you know, half comic book shop, half dispensary. And, you know, and they're trying to stick in there. They're really trying, and I applaud them for that. But, you know, it came to the point where you could have a shop doing nothing but comics, but then that's a niche of a niche. And then it became like, oh, well, okay, I'll be a comic shop and something else. But even that's starting to get less sustainable now. And there's no telling where it's going to go. Because, I mean, just digital is so easy. And again, I will freely admit that I'm part of the problem on this one. Because for my job, again, I need to read 10, 12 books a week. I can't always go down to the shop for that one and bring back a huge long box. I gotta get them online because it's easier. And also, hey, making thumbnails for my videos, it's easier to do that too. There was a time when I used to scan every page. Now I don't do that anymore. I save so much time because time is money in YouTube. It's time you could be making another video. But yeah, it's a very weird, very interesting time. I know these characters aren't going anywhere, as we've seen by the success of the movies and the TV shows and everything. You know, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, the X-Men, they're evergreen. They're not going anywhere. They are going to stick around. What form they stick around in, I don't know, especially as we enter a time in history when it feels like all the smaller companies are being bought up by bigger companies. And, you know, like, obviously, you know, it's DC Comics, a subsidiary of Time Warner Media, and, you know, it's Marvel Comics, a subsidiary of Disney, etc., etc. And they're like, again, you know, they call them heartless companies for a reason. And they're like, well, you're not making what we want to make, so, you know, we're gonna cut off the finger to save the hand on this one. I hope it never comes to that. I really do. But again, the sudden death of Vertigo and the sudden death of Mad Magazine, you know, I probably would have been more positive on this one last week before that stuff happened. But, you know, but having Vertigo and Mad get the axe like within a couple weeks of each other just makes me go, gah. That's a scary thought, is what that is. Anything else, anybody? Yes.
The constant, with the culture of comics itself, you have a bunch of people just like making headlines and all this. Mm-hmm. And there's, you mentioned DC, so there's stuff like Dan DiDio hating Nightmare.
Yeah.
How do you know what you can or can't believe from what you
yeah.
as well, right? Because the whole Marvel league with the, Nick Spencer's going to write Spider-Man. Yeah. We couldn't confirm that until it actually happened.
Yeah, you know, Dan DiDio hating Nightwing. I think that might have been like an anecdote that was true once, but I think it's morphed and, you know, taken on a life of itself, like all great urban legends, where, you know, where it's like, you know, oh, Marie Antoinette said, you know, let them eat cake. She didn't actually say that, but it's such a good story and such a good anecdote. You know, they couldn't let it die, and it kept going. Maybe he offhandedly at a writers' meeting one time said, I don't really like Dick Grayson. And now that's morphed to like, oh, I hate Dick Grayson because he makes me feel old, and I also hate every young hero sidekick. I don't want them around anymore, and I hate Stephanie Brown too. He probably didn't actually say this, but I'm sure that, you know, it's morphed and changed into a thing. But, oh geez, I mean, the way Nightwing's being treated now and the way Wally West and the Titans are being treated now, you'd almost want to believe it. And part of me is like, is DiDio playing into that? Is he like, well, they think I hate them anyway, so, you know, let's really blow up their status quos, and let's make Dick Grayson think his name is Rick now for some reason. And let's have the Teen Titans be a junior Suicide Squad for some reason. Because, you know, nothing.
Mass murderer.
And also that too. Oh no.
Oh, it does rank him.
Oh, Heroes in Crisis. Now, yes, and then hey, we really hurt Wally West's character. What do we do? We'll get Scott Lobdell to write it because he did great with Red Hood and the Outlaws. Hey, on the upside, he doesn't like me, so I don't have to read it. You ain't getting my money, Scott. The view, I know, the views would probably be. That's another thing about YouTube. You don't always get to do what you want. Sometimes you do have to trend chase. Sometimes you do have to do the stuff that's popular. I'm slow to adopt these things. Like, whenever there's a new challenge out there, like, what was it, like the cinnamon challenge and like the lighter challenge and everything, and like, you know, so many people hopped on that, and the way I think of that is, yeah, you might get a lot of views in this moment, but you don't want to get a reputation as a trend chaser, because if you hop on a hot trend now, you're gonna keep doing it, and it's like an addiction, and it's gonna be hard to stop. And I've seen many channels that started as comic book channels, but then chased whatever the big thing at the moment was, you know, be it like Injustice content, or like be it whatever hot TV show was at the time, and they made their channel only about those things. And in doing that, and by continuing to flip back and forth between what's hot at the moment, they never built an identity, and in never building an identity, they never built an audience. Is the thing. I am happy to say that I have really great fans who are, you know, a loyal audience because they know what I'm about and they keep coming, and I'm totally not sucking up to them because there's like a couple of them in the crowd right now. But seriously, getting to meet you guys was great. I'm glad we all got to take pictures. But yes, oh yes, you ma'am.
So you say you don't always get to do the chase trends. So what is your favorite review that you have done?
Ooh, oh, that's really good. Oh, what is my favorite review? I feel like this would change every year you ask me this, but I think recently, again, to get all Ratatouille on you for a second here, you know, I feel my best as a critic when I come out to defend something new and different and something that maybe people aren't giving a chance, but that I see something brilliant in. Secret Empire from Nick Spencer. Everyone hated that book because everyone just read the headlines where it's like, oh no, they made Captain America Hydra. And I'm like, yeah, they made him a secret Hydra agent. Like after 3 years of story and build up to this and the realities being rewritten and like cool secret conspiracy stuff, it's like for all the people who just jumped on, yeah, but you don't know the rich backstory though. I promise it's good if you knew the rich backstory. There's so much here and he's making a point. He's trying to say something about modern times. And you know, Steve Rogers is a, you know, stand-in for, you know, America's is like, and you're already gone. You've already moved on to the next thing. That's a problem with comic books too. I feel like even really good comic book journalism is like finite and like only here for a minute because it's an industry that never stops. New issues just keep coming, and you know, it's hard sometimes to go back and reevaluate things, which is a shame because comics are art, you know, they're artwork and they're writing, and I feel like a lot of these things should be revisited. But yeah, I'm really proud of Secret Empire because I stuck in there and I stuck to my guns, and I'm like, no, this is good, and I can explain why this is good. I've also gone the other way too on that, where, you know, I will actively be like, no, this is terrible. What do people say in this? And again, I might get some boos in this very room right now. Tom King's Batman. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it's completely obsessed with itself. I don't think it's very good. I think Tom King is a good writer. I thought his Vision 12 issues was great. I thought his Mr. Miracle was really good. I think he's a writer that thrives in 12 issues, and this is his first time writing a full monthly series. And and they give him Batman right out of the gate. I don't think he was ready. I don't think he fully thought it through. I think he works better in 12 issues, and I think the series like actually gets worse and worse. And in fact, it's getting cut short because he's getting called up to write something for Hollywood soon. He's going to be writing that New Gods movie. So I mean, I think he's a creator that, even though I've said lots of bad stuff about his work, I don't think he cares, because I think he's laughing all the way to the bank. And I have met Tom King, and it was when I was giving him not favorable reviews. Nice man to me, super cool dude. Again, I talked to him how much I liked Mr. Miracle. I don't think he knew who I was. Maybe he would have felt different if he knew who he was, because I didn't have a badge that said my name on it. I'm like, hey man, I really like that first issue of Mr. Miracle. Oh, thanks, man. I'm like, oh, I liked the Jesus imagery there, because, you know, High Father, and they're walking on the beach and the two sets of footprints, and that's fun. I think when Tom King's run is done, I think what I should really do is I need to do a video looking back, and I need to be like, look, here are the 5 things I actually liked from his run, so you can all leave me alone in the comments section. But yes, anything else at all? Also, I don't have the time on me. Am I going overtime? No one's gonna get mad at me if I, 4:30. Okay, 4:30. But when does the next one start? Oh, yes, you all the way in the back. Oh, Scott Snyder, man, I owe so much to Scott Snyder's Batman. I really, really do. I cut my teeth reviewing that book when the New 52 started. The New 52 was a great boon for comic book YouTubers and comic book people. In fact, I don't think me and my friends would have our jobs now were it not for the New 52 and this new, newly revived interest in DC heroes. And you can complain like this wasn't as good as that and they changed that origin story, but the truth is I have nothing but love for it, because I wouldn't be here without it. But yeah, Scott Snyder is great and continues to do great work with Batman, both in Justice League and the Batman Who Laughs. I mean, he's one of the greats. He's one of the all-time greats, and moreover than that, another super nice guy. He's actually one of the few creators who wrote me and said, hey man, glad you liked it, thanks for making the video. And I'm like, oh man, a creator actually saw something I did, because it still blows my mind even 5 years later that any creator actually watches what I do and actually cares about what I do. I'm still very much in the headset I was in 5 years ago. I'm like, oh, I make this for my friends to laugh. I do this to kill time. And then I'm like, no, I don't do that anymore. And yes, creators do watch and they do listen. And maybe because of that, you know, I should try that much harder to make them good, especially when I know it's someone's first book is the thing. I really try and take extra care. Teenie Howard, she's writing the Thanos miniseries right now, which is really good, really good stuff. It's an origin story of like Thanos raising Gamora during the first time they met, and it's like, it's darkly funny, and like it's kind of like a cosmic beast with no nation, and I'm like, oh, this is really good stuff. And she wrote me and she tweeted me and she's like, hey, thanks for the video, glad you liked it. And you know, I feel like, you know, that's a connection right there. Now obviously, you know, to remain impartial as a critic, I don't want to get too friendly with the people I'm reviewing, because I know that could be seen as a conflict of interest there, but I'm glad to say the majority of people I meet are super cool, and Scott Snyder is definitely one of those people. Just a great dude, and you know, I cannot wait to see what he does next, actually, so that's really good. You, because you're... Oh, the book Symbiote Spider-Man? I have not read it. I think it's a cool premise to be like, hey, let's fill in the blanks for Spider-Man when he had the suit and all those years he can't remember. I know they brought Mysterio back into that because he's going to be in the new movie, which makes a lot of sense. And the book is sticking around because it's getting an Absolute Carnage tie-in, which is actually kind of cool that this book that's set in the past is going to be getting a tie-in. But no, I haven't had a chance to really sit down and read it, but I hear good things, so there you go. Yes.
On your own personal opinion, since you were talking about writers, any of them that you would ever want on the comic multiverse?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know Joshua Williamson's really intact with the fan base as well.
Yes.
Oh
boy, is he ever. Oh yeah, there's so many people. Obviously, I would like to talk to Jim Zub. In fact, I was trying to get Jim Zub on the show. He's Canadian too. I take a real interest in the careers of other Canadians because I figure, hey man, high tides raise all ships, and if you're doing good, I'm doing good. I actually had a friend, he's an animator out in PEI, and he said, oh hey Jill, you're going to Geektopia, is Jim Zub gonna be there? I'm like, no. He's like, oh, I thought you just latched onto him wherever he goes. And I'm like, look, he's my good luck charm and he's a nice guy, but no, I went to this one of my own accord. But yeah, Jim Zub definitely. Gail Simone, I don't think she does as many interviews anymore, but I think she's great. I'd really like to talk to her. G. Willow Wilson, naturally too, another person who I think is just a very interesting person on top of being a cool writer. I feel Snyder would be good. I actually did a lot more interviews. Here's a shocking thing about comic book YouTube. I used to do a bunch of interviews back in the day. They don't do good numbers. People love comic books, people love superheroes. They don't like to see how the sausage gets made most of the time. Isn't that crazy? The people don't want to hear what the writers have to say. Although I've gotten slick now, if you listen to the